complete destruction, chaos, confusion.
We can't control Mother Nature.
It's happened before.
Within 2 years, we had 2 very significant fires in Waldo Canyon and Black Forest.
It will happen again.
The wildfire threat here is still very real.
Our firefighters are taking lessons learned. The training is more advanced than ever.
It's dirty, it's hot, it's extremely exhausting.
The work is more intense.
It's long days, long hours.
Now, only on News 5, behind the scenes at fire camp, we walk you step by step through the training, the dedication of wildland firefighters, men and women whose sole focus is to protect lives and homes in southern Colorado.
This is a KOAA News 5 special presentation, Fireline, Southern Colorado's Wildfire Outlook.
Hi there, I'm Sam Kraemer with this News 5 special report, Fireline, Readiness and Response, your in-depth look at the real wildfire risk in Colorado Springs, understanding how fire behaves in our area and checking in on firefighters who prepare around the clock to protect this place we call home. Now, before we get into the details here, here's why it's important. We've already experienced the worst case scenario with national attention during the Waldo Canyon fire. That fire back in 2012 reduced 346 homes to ash, and the threat for a repeat remains in other parts of the city.
Fire everywhere, burning buildings everywhere, complete destruction, chaos, confusion, cars abandoned on the side of the road, cars on fire. It was just utterly unbelievable, the destruction.
Even with the backdrop of a nighttime sky, when fires tend to cool down, there wasn't much Colorado Springs firefighters could do. Flames already entered the Mountain Shadows neighborhood on the city's west side, flattening homes as residents evacuated.
It was just devastating. That thought in the back of your mind that that's my city, I'm supposed to be protecting that. They're looking to us.
Their work was only beginning. It was the first full call-out in the fire department's history, and rightfully so, as flames jumped from house to house.
Some of the fire behavior was things that I'd never seen before.
18 days passed before the Waldo Canyon fire was finally contained, and the damage was already done. 2 people were killed, 346 homes were lost, insurance claims totaling more than $450 million. It's the most significant wildfire the city has ever endured, though the threat remains high. The wildland-urban interface, where homes and buildings meet the forest, extends across the city, not just west of I-25.
We have thousands of homes in our area that stretch from north up in the Peregrine area, clear down south into Cheyenne Mountain, that are all threatened when we have wildland fires.
Between overgrown vegetation, terrain, and a number of homes, Cheyenne Mountain poses a threat similar to what happened with Waldo Canyon. It's a completely different threat on the east side of the city, where the speed of grass fires is an even bigger problem.
Those fine, flashy fields, the grass and the shrubs burn quick, and the wind blows a lot harder on that side. So it has the potential to take out a lot of infrastructure and homes before we can get our resources in the right places.
That's why CSFD trains all of its firefighters, including those just joining the ranks, on the basics of wildland firefighting.
We're more of when this happens instead of if this happens, so we've always planned for this to happen. So when Waldo Canyon took place, we were ready for it simply because it's when it's going to happen.
Ensuring they'll be even more ready should a full call-out ever happen again.
And for the basis of this story, we joined the department's largest training academy for a week-long wildland firefighting session broken down into a number of modules. They include structure protection when wildfires threaten homes and buildings. Firefighters also learned how to use pumps and hoses in the field, as these fires often burn in areas where water is limited. Now, to that end, we spent time practicing how to drive some of their wildland trucks, those brush trucks, in rough terrain. The week ends with a mock fire scenario where all of the classroom learning from the first part of camp is put to use on simulated fires, but nothing is more important than this right here, fire behavior. It's the first lesson taught in camp, as understanding the signs a fire is giving dictates how best to fight it.
Check it out! Wow, look at that.
Wildfires, they are more complex than simply showing up and putting out the flames. Containing them is truly a science.
All the teaching we do are building blocks. We want to build a really good foundation. So they need to understand something about fire behavior and what causes it.
The foundation lies in knowing what the fire is doing through a number of signs it can give. For instance, how fast it's moving, the color of smoke rising from the flames, even the direction of that smoke all tell firefighters something. They also tie into the weather associated with that fire.
We look at the fire, we see where has it been, where is it right now, where's it going based on primarily weather. So the biggest factor there is wind, but also going to be relative humidity.
Wildfires need 3 elements to ignite: oxygen, heat, and fuel. So high temperature days when our fuels have dried out, combined with heavy winds, provide an ample opportunity for larger growth. It also dictates how firefighters will respond in removing one of those elements either directly on the flames or indirectly, establishing a larger perimeter around the active fire to contain it.
We can't control Mother Nature. We can't control the terrain, the topography we're working in. We can't control the weather, but we can control the fuels. And so that's what we do, and that's what really most of our tactics are designed around.
Another factor particularly important across southern Colorado is terrain and knowing how fire behaves in certain spots. Generally, fire burns faster moving upslope than down, while canyons, especially narrow ones, pose a huge hazard as the winds accelerate through them, spreading flames at a faster pace. They're also keeping a close eye on flame lengths, the literal behavior of the flame, and fuels it's burning through. Firefighters are at their best fighting flames on the ground, so if a fire reaches the top of trees known as crowning, it becomes much harder to fight, and in turn, requiring a change of tactics moving forward.
Now, most of us are familiar with what a fire department's response to a structure fire looks like, but it's completely different in wildland, where firefighters must be mobile in case of a sudden change on that fire, and they don't really have the resources to enter a burning building. Their primary objective: protect as many savable homes as they can. The Waldo Canyon fire made the Mountain Shadows neighborhood look like a war zone. Their streets lined with burning homes, increasing damage, stress, and the fire's size.
The buildings themselves, the structures, can become fuel. And that's what we experienced on the Waldo fire, was that those buildings themselves were actually propagating the fire further and further into the city.
El Paso County and the city adapted fire codes following that fire, banning wood siding and decks on new construction. With nearly half of all Coloradans living in the wildland-urban interface, the demand to protect structures is as high as it's ever been. But firefighting manpower, even with the benefit of time, can't keep up.
We can manipulate the fire environment to make sure that it's not only safe for us, but safe for the structures in the fire environment, so they can almost protect themselves, because we don't have enough firefighters and there's not enough fire engines in the state to put one in every driveway and protect them as the fire hits.
The structure triage and structure protection. That's what we need to be good at as Colorado Springs firefighters when you guys come out.
Since Waldo, CSFD established a structure triage plan so firefighters can quickly evaluate structures, decide how best to protect them, and carry on. Captain Steve Oswald taught that plan as part of our field exercise, speaking from experience on Waldo, the Black Forest fire, and more.
We had homes that we saved, homes that were standing one day, and then we're on the ground the next day with no fire front going into them.
Now, firefighters must decide whether the building fits into one of 3 categories: not threatened, threatened and defensible, or threatened and not defensible. That category dictates their response. If it's defensible, firefighters scan the property, looking to remove any fuel that could potentially ignite the structure and establish a safety zone to go to if needed. They may also spray the building down as well as the ground around it to cool it before the fire hits. But if a property has no defensible space, is fire prone, and can't be safely protected, firefighters will examine other structures that carry a lower risk.
Structures are important. People's valuables are important. We've sworn an oath to protect our city and to protect our citizens, but we don't want to die doing it. A tree, grass, isn't worth somebody's life. When we have a major incident, we only have so many resources available.
We've seen the training, the dedication of fire crews to save homes and lives, but even with all of that knowledge,